If you are asking an SEO specialist what is the key element of successful migration, most likely you will hear that it's 301 redirect mapping. In simple words, if you fail with 301 mapping, most likely you will screw overall migration project. If you perform 301 mapping good, then you will have one problem less. In practice, when do you need to think of 301 mapping? It's needed in any project which includes URL structure change. Usually, it's related to change of the platform. For example, Shopify to Magento, BigCommerce to Scandi PWA, etc., etc. Also, when there are upgrade from Magento 1 to Magento 2, it also might include change of URL structure. For example, client decided to get rid of some directory or implement some new language that also might lead to URL changes and 301 mapping. Definitely, if there is migration from HTTP to HTTPS, it should include 301 mapping. And in general, any project, also on existing platform, which includes some change of URL structure, leads to the need of having 301 mapping, most likely. Just in case, what is 301 redirect? 301 redirect is HTTP response status code, which indicates that certain URL has moved permanently to a new location and that it's happened forever. Basically, when user is entering a URL, if there's 301 redirect applied, the content of another page will be loaded and there will be changed URL in the address bar. And now let's explore how 301 redirect looks in practice in one of our projects, Sportland.lv. So, what is the background? Sportland wanted to localize URLs because previously here is the old URL, example of the old URL, which is in English. However, they have websites in Latvian, Lithuanian, Estonian. And from a SEO perspective and user perspective, it was decided that it makes more sense to have them translated in local languages. So what we have, if we take as an example one of the categories, category men clothing, jackets and vests. So we see that it was started to be active on November 2 and basically existed for a bit less than a month. And if we look actually at the sources where the people were coming to this page during this month, we can see that there were people who were coming directly. So they might be just typing the URL in their browser because they have visited it already. There might be also some bookmarks. Most likely, there are some organic traffic or paid traffic attributed here. Also, we can see that there was organic traffic, paid search, social, display referral, so different sources where people were coming from. So for us to make sure that user experience is smooth and that after URLs are translated, people who had the page bookmarked could get to the new updated URL, that we keep the organic search, because if Google would see that page returns 404, rankings would go down and the new page wouldn't easily get the same results. Um, to ensure that we don't waste money on paying for paid advertisement where people are landing on 404, etc., etc., etc. So for us, for all these sources, it's very important to apply 301 redirect. So it was actually done. And if we enter now the old URL, the page is actually loaded, same man jacket, but the URL you can see here, it's in Latvian. Also, if we look in inspect network, we can see that first response code is 301, moved permanently, and there is redirect to the Latvian URL, which returns 200 status code. So all good. So what was the result? As 301 redirect was successfully implemented, you could see the traffic. So here it was around 40 redirects were implemented and transferred to Latvian URL. Overall, December was pretty good for Sportland, so actually traffic went up. So we couldn't see some drop related to traffic here. So this is example of successfully applied 301 redirects. And now let's explore two cases of migration projects which were done without a proper 301 mapping. So case number one, migration from Magento 1 to Magento 2 with URL structure change. As you can see, there was more or less stable incoming traffic. Migration happened, boom, traffic went down due to lack of 301 mapping mainly. And you can see that the loss was around 50% or even more in the beginning, and obviously it came not only with less traffic, but also here is basically also lost money. So that's the case when we can't call migration as successful migration. It was done, but traffic went so low that like it's basically a fail. Another case, quite stable traffic, low, around 250 visitors per day, but enough for the owner of the website to consider migration from Magento 1 to Magento 2. Again, due to some reason, 301 mapping was not implemented. What happened after that? Traffic went significantly down. It was almost close to zero. And we overtook the project, implemented 301 mapping. But the sad part is that even if you actually do 301 mapping after the migration, it's already too late. So it will not recover to the same level as it was before the migration. And in this case, we were investing additional resources in on-page optimization, in backlinks building to grow the traffic of the website. The good thing is that we actually managed to achieve some good results, and websites started to ranking well and overall traffic grow. But obviously in this part, nobody was really happy because one thing is that rankings went down due to lost connection between old and new pages. And also even these people here were often landing on 404 pages in the beginning and took a look, didn't see what they wanted as it was non-existing page, and often people leave. So besides just lower traffic, you also get lower conversion rates, and amount of money lost there is again quite significant. Why why such things happened in the first place. Let's imagine that we are handling migration of adenandanai.co.uk from Sana, which is another platform, e-commerce platform, to Magento 2. And we have URLs already there for years, for example, 3 years, 5 years, etc. So let's imagine this PLP is like having such URL already for 5 years. For a while already, it's ranking in Google for the specific keywords. It has a lot of backlinks. It has many social shares. So this URL has built its authority already. It probably also is used in a lot of PPC advertisements. It's appearing in email campaigns. So it has like a lot of connections to the internet, to users, to different platforms, different external resources. So it already has quoted and re-quoted all over the internet. So it's pretty important. And let's imagine in your website, you have decided to move all content from here, remove this all, and just put content here. So this specific URL, it has no legacy backlinks. It has no social shares. It just has content of this URL. Yeah, it's still good. But if you don't make a bridge between these two, so after migration, this URL will start to return 404 error, and Google or any other like email campaign, etc., or user won't so easily to make a bridge between old URL and new URL, that they are connected. So, and without that bridge, you will get exactly this situation. That this nice URLs, which were actually having some value will start to return 404 error, and new URLs don't have this authority to rank at the same level the old ones did. So they don't have these backlinks pointing to specifically to this URL. So how you can solve this situation and avoid it and make migration almost not noticeable? You can do that by applying 301 redirects. So basically creating this bridge between old URL and new URL. It is said that 301 mapping is passing more or less 90% of these legacy things, for example, backlinks. So you might lose some rankings still, but often the old content is simply like replaced by new URL in Google. So you won't notice any changes in this case, if it's done correctly. Let's look into a practical example how it can be done and how 301 mapping is looking. So we will see currently a specific working file of the same adenandanai.co.uk. This is how is like, yeah, actual 301 mapping working file looks like. What you see here, you see one column with old URLs and one column with new URLs. What is the logic? If old URL has moved to another updated URL, for example, we have here some hooded towel set, and now the same product is just having a new place, then we map it directly. In some cases, if some subcategories products are disappearing, we are mapping them with category. If something is gone completely and no like any related content, we just map it to homepage. And we are taking data from database. So we are making sure that all products, all PLPs, homepage, CMS are mapped. And we are also looking at some legacy URLs, for example, something which is not really available in database, but for example, linked maybe in some blog and needs additional 301 redirect to the new version. So basically, legacy 301 redirects. We are also mapping URLs which have a lot of backlinks. Then, when SEO specialists have compiled such document, in some cases, actually, client decides that they want to do it internally, as actually it might be quite a big of the work. We try to automate the processes, which can be automated by using some Excel formulas, regexes, maybe some even things which are built on the server level to manage some more complex redirects. However, often it's pure manual, boring work which can take a week of time to put all URLs and map them one by one. Therefore, clients might do it internally. In such cases, we provide detailed guidelines and do QA, because still clients tend to make mistakes. And you remember how it looked in GA data. We want to avoid such mistakes when possible. So what is happening afterwards? Once URLs are mapped, we also split them in different ways. Something which can be applied on the server level, something which should be implemented on Magento level, and pass it to developers. So once this list is passed to developers, they upload to the website, SEO team does the QA, and when website is launched, migrated, we do QA one more time. When we try to open the old URL, we get automatically, so this one we try to open, and we get to baby new arrivals. So, and here you can see what happened. This old URL goes to new one using 301 redirect. This is one of the things we usually say that that's a blocker for go lives. So if there is no 301 mapping, we wouldn't recommend to go live. Usually, what is the issue here, that to do 301 mapping, the content needs to be fully present on the new website. Basically, if there are no products, no categories, no CMS pages, we don't know where URLs will be mapped. Therefore, we ask client to make sure that content is present fully at least 1 week before the go live. Depending on amount of store views and products, we might need to extend this time, or we might squeeze it in way less time. Another note, that sometimes it makes much more sense to make sure that both URLs are matching, basically adjust URLs on Magento to match the old URLs, rather than do 301 mapping. That might be the case if previous URL structure is well developed and the website relies quite a lot on organic traffic. Then that's the recommended way.